Before closing in 2000, Savanna, Illinois was home to one of the largest munition depots in the country. It was during World War II that it began to bloom and help aid soldiers and civilians both on the battlefield and off. Made up of 13,062 acres, the Savanna Army Depot played a big role in the war effort, mainly by manufacturing munitions. The property was purchased by the U.S. Army in 1917 as a test facility, and the making of artillery shells and bombs began in the 1930s. The depot has processed, handled, and stored munitions, explosives, and industrial chemicals since the operation started. Now the oldest depot in the history of Industrial Operations Command, the Savanna Army Depot was opened because the Rock Island Arsenal needed a place to test the weapons they produced. Depot employees had to be taught how to properly assemble, disassemble, and handle missiles, bombs, and other munitions.
And I even got picked for one trip. I got to go to school for 3 days and went on a 90-day trip to take missiles apart and change the warheads and remove washers that they put in and take them out so they wouldn't explode.
A majority of the munitions shot during the artillery testing were blanks because the mission was simply to test fire of the guns. After years of testing other depots' weapons, the testing facility transformed into a weapons depot in 1921. With the growth of the depot and the need for jobs, employment jumped a considerable amount. This caused nearby towns to flourish and begin to expand.
The employment was about 7,000 people. Wow. And they was working 3 shifts, and they come from Macokota, Benton, Wisconsin, Shellsburg, Platteville, Clinton, and some of them would be there. They'd be from Shellsburg, and they'd be so early down there to be dedicated that they had to wait for them to open the gates.
As World War II progressed, the use of igloos increased. Igloos are between 1,000 and 2,000 square feet of storage space, reinforced above with steel and secured with a sturdy 4-ton door.
They weigh 4 tons. They were about that thick.
The igloos were then covered with dirt in order to camouflage them from aerial surveillance. It was in 1948 that one of the 407 igloos at the Savanna Army Depot exploded, leaving behind a 100 feet wide by 50 feet deep crater, which is still visible today.
About a year at that time, and we had the movies down here in Back Street, and we was all sitting in the show and we heard this boom and everything broke. Windows even broke as far as Clinton, Dubuque. We did find part of the doors up in the attic of the other buildings, but we didn't find any big chunks. It was all little debris and stuff that, that we spot where it went through the concrete roofs down there.
After World War II, employment and production slowly declined. In the 1950s, there was an average of 2,000 employees, but by the 1960s, the number decreased to 1,000. Eventually, by 1995, the number had dwindled to a mere 450 workers. The workers of the depot all had unique jobs, some of which had jobs that allowed them to see the country. Certain individuals even got to ride trains with the munitions to other arsenals around the country. In 1977, the government considered closing the depot, but because of the local workers who joined together and lobbied Washington, D.C., the Savanna Army Depot remained open. A main addition to the Savanna Army Depot was the Ammunition Inspector's School. It was the only school of its kind in the United States. The school trained men who inspected and supervised the storage and transportation of most of the ammunition that was held in reserve at storage points around the world. The usual students in the school were civilian employees, but occasionally some uniforms were sprinkled in the classrooms.
They had instructors that taught people from all over the United States that came in for training about ammunition and different aspects that were taught there at the school. And there were classes continually of men and women, as I say, that came from all over the United States to be trained down there at the ammunition school.
The occasional United States serviceman was sent here to study a specific problem. The newest expansion that the school had was the installation of the guided missile program. Aside from all of the work that was done at the Savanna Army Depot, there were also many forms of entertainment for the workers and their families. This included organized sports games such as baseball, basketball, and wrestling. There was also a swimming pool open to families and workers. A bowling alley was also installed in the late 1960s. Fire safety played a big part in the Savanna Army Depot. For over 80 years, there has been a fire program, and they had a fire school that trained firefighters, both male and female. Women played a big part in the fire program mostly during the Second World War. You can see an advance in technology over the years, especially in the changes in the fire truck each decade. Other examples is the aerial ladder truck, because it was the first in the area. Live training also played a large part in the program, but in the 1990s, the live fire training phased out. The Savanna Army Depot had been without a small arms firing range since around the mid-1980s. The construction of the range was finished in the spring of 1994 and was located in the grove of evergreen trees behind the fire station. On May 14, 1996, a historical marker was placed near the Welcome Center. It describes the role the depot played throughout its history. Today, it is dedicated to the men and women who have worked and served at the Savanna Army Depot. Finally, the dreaded day came in March of 2000. The depot had officially stopped production and shut down. Many people were laid off and searching for new jobs. The closing had a big effect on the neighboring towns such as Savanna and Hanover.
When it closed, it was devastation for all the little communities around us, because they then moved, especially the school, everything went down to Utah. Did affect all of it, Hanover, Savannah, Thompson, Mount Carroll, Leonard. We had people from all over that worked down there. So it was a big, whatever you want to call it, that never should have happened.
Because of the fall of Russia in December of 1991, President George Bush and President Clinton oversaw a reduction of the U.S. military as the Cold War had ended and it was no longer needed. The Savanna Army Depot was one of these cuts to reduce U.S. defense overhead. After the closing, the Illinois Department of Natural Resources bought the land and found that it was home to 46 threatened and endangered plants and animals. Today, the depot and its buildings remain in their original positions as a reminder of what was once the center of military development of the area. Throughout the years, the Savanna Army Depot has played a big part in Illinois history. Whether it was by creating ammunition for soldiers in the war or by providing jobs for thousands of local residents, the Savanna Army Depot impacted individuals' lives in many ways. The years during World War II was its turning point, where expansion started to begin and more good things came out. It was because of the Savanna Army Depot that the lives of individuals were changed, memories were made, and everlasting bonds were created.
And the day I went in, there was another girl from Sebula went in. And she and I were friends up until she died a few years ago.
And as a matter of fact, that's how I met my husband. He came back from military service from World War II for reemployment benefits. And when I gave him the paperwork that he had to complete, he said, "Well, I don't write very well. Would you please fill out those papers for me?" And and that's how we met.
The Savanna Army Depot may have closed in 2000, but the impact it had on the lives of its workers will last forever.